Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. The hallway was empty, just flickering lights, echoes, and a silence that had learned to swallow secrets. Behind a half-closed door, a man in a faded uniform stood still, barely breathing. Inside, voices were low but sharp. "No one can ever find out about the rigged equipment contracts," the boss muttered. "And if that doorman hears anything, we'll take care of him." The man froze. His fingers tightened around the ID badge that had hung on his chest for 27 years. His heart raced. Sweat trickled down his temple. For nearly 3 decades, Silverio had heard everything and never said a word. Until that night. Silverio dos Anjos was 62, but his spirit carried the weight of 100 quiet winters. He was the first to walk through the gates of Afian Industries, badge number 0001 pinned proudly to his chest. Back then, the company was just a dream, a small lab with big ambition. He joined with hope in his eyes, believing in hard work, loyalty, and the promise of a better future. And for a while, that dream looked real. He saw the company rise like a steel giant, new buildings, international deals, powerful executives. But with every promotion announced, with every champagne toast, Silverio stood at the door, and listened. He saw what most weren't meant to see: shady deals sealed with handshakes, deliveries made under moonlight, lies dressed in suits. People came and went, some smiled too much. Others avoided his gaze. Over the years, he became part of the walls, present, helpful, forgotten. He held umbrellas for interns in the rain. He carried shopping bags for the HR ladies. Kids visiting their parents always waved at Mr. Silverio. But behind his warm eyes lived memories. A bribe slipped into a folder. A truck hauling false cargo. Employees weeping quietly after being unfairly let go. Silverio didn't forget. He simply chose silence until now. Silverio had lived in the shadows for years, convinced that silence was his only shield. Better to keep quiet, he told himself repeatedly. Who am I to challenge giants? The company was a world he barely touched, a place where powerful voices drowned out the whispers of a simple doorman. He accepted his place, watching from afar, locked in a silent pact with his conscience. But that night was different. The voices behind the door weren't just whispers this time, they were confessions. The CEO and a senior executive spoke openly, unaware of the ears pressed just beyond the crack. They discussed siphoning public funds through government contracts, hiding layoffs under false reports, and rewriting numbers to cover the mess. Silverio's heart pounded louder with every word. A shiver ran down his spine as he muttered under his breath, This is a crime. A serious crime. The weight of years of silence suddenly crashed upon him. He stumbled back to his small guard booth, his face pale, hands trembling. The old radio he kept by his side crackled but offered no comfort, no escape from the storm raging in his mind. At home, the silence was heavier. He stared at the faded photograph on his worn wooden dresser, a picture of his late wife, Maria, smiling warmly beside their little daughter, Aina. The memory of their laughter haunted him, especially Aina's untimely death after a medical error. That hospital had once received generous donations from the very company now revealed as corrupt. The irony wasn't lost on him. How could he have ignored the truth for so long? The same place that took his family's hope, now fed by greed and lies, his hands clenched into fists. The years of loyalty clashed with a rising fire of justice. Something inside him stirred a voice, growing louder, demanding to be heard. He remembered the late-night walks through the empty factory floors, the distant hum of machines masking silent cries. Faces of coworkers flashed before his eyes, some struggling to feed their families after sudden layoffs, others forced to turn a blind eye to unethical orders. He wasn't alone in this. The corruption was a cancer eating the heart of the company. Fear gnawed at him. What if he spoke out? Would they silence him? Would he lose everything, his job, his modest home, his few friends? But the guilt of silence weighed heavier than any threat. He had to choose, protect himself in the shadows or risk everything to bring light to the truth. The night deepened. Silverio sat by the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. He pulled out a small notebook, the one he had kept for years to jot down small details, names, dates. Now it would serve a greater purpose. He would begin to document what he had heard, what he had seen, what he could no longer ignore. With trembling fingers, he switched on his phone's recorder and whispered into the darkness, "This is Silverio dos Anjos, badge number 0001. What I'm about to reveal will change everything." His breath caught, but his resolve was firm. The first step had been taken, and there was no turning back. In that quiet moment, a simple doorman became more than a guardian of doors. He became a guardian of truth. The fight ahead was uncertain, dangerous even. But for the first time in years, Silverio felt alive, ready to face the storm he had once feared, ready to be heard. Silverio's resolve hardened like steel. He slipped a small recorder into the brim of his worn cap and began capturing every whispered secret he overheard. Late nights turned into omission snapping photos of careless emails left open on desks, jotting down names and dates, piecing together the puzzle of corruption. Each night his courage grew, fueled by the weight of truth pressing on his conscience. But the atmosphere shifted. Silent eyes began watching him. New security cameras appeared like cold sentinels near his booth, scanning every move. A longtime coworker pulled him aside, voice low but urgent. "They're onto you, old man. Be careful." The warning hit him hard. He was no longer invisible. His act of bravery had made him a target. The fear was real, but so was his determination. Silverio knew that staying silent now meant betrayal, not just of himself, but of every honest worker crushed by greed. That night, instead of going home to his empty apartment, he walked straight into the cold, fluorescent-lit halls of the federal police station. He carried every shred of evidence like a shield. Inside, the agents listened, eyes widening as Silverio laid bare the rot hidden behind the company's shiny facade. His voice was steady despite the storm raging inside him. The weight of years lifted a little as officers took his files, their faces hardening with resolve. This was bigger than any one man, it was a reckoning. In the following hours, chaos erupted at the company. Flashing blue and red lights flooded the parking lot. Sirens wailed like a warning cry to the corrupt. Federal agents executed search warrants, seizing computers and documents. Executives once untouchable were handcuffed, their power crumbling under the truth Silverio had risked everything to expose. And through it all, Silverio stood firm, not a hero in a cape, but a man who dared to choose justice over fear. His silence had ended. The company and the lives it affected would never be the same. That night marked the first page of a new story, one where courage broke chains and small actions sparked a revolution. Silverio left the company quietly, carrying a simple cardboard box filled with his belongings. His years of service ended without fanfare, but outside, a different story awaited him. Former coworkers and neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, clapping and cheering in respect. They knew the truth, and they knew who had brought it to light. In their eyes, Silverio was no longer just a doorman. He was a hero. Reporters flocked to him, eager for a statement. They called him the guardian of truth, a man whose small actions had shaken a giant. Invitations came from organizations that championed ethical whistleblowing, recognizing his bravery. Silverio accepted their praise with humility, but inside, a new purpose was growing. The man who once guarded doors was now guarding values. With support from a local NGO, Silverio returned to school to study ethics and corporate responsibility. He began giving talks, sharing his story with crowds, eager to learn about courage and integrity in the workplace. His voice, once quiet behind a door, now echoed loudly in auditoriums. His message was simple but powerful. Standing up for what is right can change everything. The company itself went through a transformation. New leadership took the helm with a commitment to transparency and justice. Corruption was rooted out, and programs were introduced to support employees and the surrounding community. What was once a place of silence and fear became a symbol of hope and change, all sparked by one man's decision to act. Silverio's life was never the same, but neither was the company or the community it served. His story spread far beyond the factory gates, inspiring others to listen, observe, and find their own courage. The ripple effect of his choice reminded everyone that even the smallest voice matters. Because sometimes truth starts with one person daring to speak. Sometimes the hero in a story doesn't wear a cape. Instead, they wear a simple uniform, smile with their eyes, and hold more than keys. They hold their conscience. Silverio's story teaches us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers quietly in the silence, and that whisper has the power to change everything. So, when faced with a choice between silence and justice, remember Silverio. Remember that bravery isn't about fame or glory. It's about doing what's right, even when no one is watching. And in those quiet moments, heroes are born. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Your words might inspire the next story. And hey, if you felt something real today, consider subscribing. We're building a community where stories heal, connect, and change lives. One video at a time.